Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to cover what we know about the cooling off period. Yesterday, the BC Finance Minister announced that we will, as expected, be having a cooling off period here in BC. We'll be the first province in Canada to implement such a change. I'm going to cover what a cooling off period is, some of the details we know at this point, and whether I think it's going to have any effect on real estate prices moving forward. If this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hasan. I'm a real estate agent in Vancouver. I make these educational videos to help you in your buying or selling journey. Without wasting any time, let's get started. So yesterday, the BC government made some changes to the Property Law Act to be able to implement a cooling off period sometime this spring. Now, what a cooling off period is, as it's described, is basically a time period after an accepted offer where buyers can walk away from their accepted offer. Now, one of the things that the BC Real Estate Association proposed is rather than do a cooling off period after an accepted offer, what if there was a pre-offer period where there was a set amount of time for buyers to do their due diligence? What we learned yesterday, though, in the press conference is that the BC government is not so concerned with providing more of a due diligence period for buyers. What they're trying to do is basically remove buyer's remorse in the market. So there were a couple key takeaways from this press conference yesterday. Again, the first one is that this will be implemented sometime this spring. Making the changes to the Property Law Act just allows them to basically come out with new rules and implementations surrounding how real estate contracts essentially are handled. Two of the things that I took away that I think are very important, and this is going to have a big effect on whether this legislation is going to be effective, is number one, it does look like there is going to be some sort of financial penalty for a buyer that walks away from an accepted offer during a cooling off period. Now, as a real estate agent and also, other people that are involved in the real estate business, one of the concerns we had was, what's to stop a buyer from writing 5 or 6 different offers, getting them all accepted, and walking away from all but one of them. What we didn't learn yesterday, though, is what that financial implication is going to be. I think this is very important because if you had scenarios where there was frivolous offers out in the market, and again, those deals were collapsed, we have to remember that sellers are also buyers and they're relying on these transactions to go through. They may be in firm contracts on the other side on the buy. So this would have created a negative chain reaction, obviously, for a lot of different buyers and sellers. So I think having a financial penalty for walking away from an offer is very important. And really the strength of this legislation, whether it's going to have any sort of weight, will come down to what that financial impact is. Now, another thing to mention is right now with real estate contracts, typically how deposits are done are basically once you have an accepted offer, if you do have a subject removal period, once the subject removal period is over, that's the time where you typically will present your deposit. And at that point, it becomes a non-refundable deposit, but you'll have already created a firm sale. Now, one of the things that I could see happening with sellers in this type of an environment is what's to stop them from asking for a split deposit, perhaps a certain amount upfront on acceptance that is non-refundable? All terms and conditions of a real estate offer are negotiable. So I could see sellers wanting to have some confirmation, some sort of skin in the game from a buyer that they're not going to walk away during this cooling off period. And one way to do that is by having a non-refundable portion of the deposit up front and the remainder of the deposit at subject removal, just as an example. So that's one gap I could see potentially in this legislation. The other thing I think is really important to note is the finance minister was asked, will buyers have the right or the ability to waive their right to this cooling off period? And the response that came from it was, we would hope that buyers wouldn't do that. We would hope that they want to be protected by the cooling off period. To me, it sounded like, and this isn't confirmed, but it sounded like buyers will have the ability. I can't really see how anyone can stop a buyer's ability from waiving this right to the cooling off period to make their offer more competitive. So there's 2 caveats basically to this legislation. One is what's the financial penalty for walking away from the accepted offer? And number 2, will the buyers have their right or the ability to waive their right to the home buyer, they're calling it a home buyer protection program, if they have the ability to waive their right to that to make their offer more competitive. Now, what do I think this is going to do for real estate prices? Right off the bat, the finance minister was asked this question, and this is not a legislation that's being put in place to assist with, real estate prices. And again, real estate agent here, other people in the industry that I've spoken with, all of us kind of felt that this wasn't going to have an effect on prices. So I don't see anything changing in that regard. Having said that, governments in general, they have this tendency of creating reactionary policies to the real estate market. And what I'm suggesting here is the market is actually going through a transition right now. If you've seen my other videos, I've talked about it. We are transitioning into more of a slower, not quite a buyer's market, but a less competitive market. We're seeing properties that are not getting, 10, 20 offers anymore. Some properties are going to offer night and they're not receiving any offers. And it's just, it always seems to be that once these changes are implemented, the market has already sorted itself out. What we need to remember about real estate markets and any financial market is they are cyclical. They go up, but then they have steadying periods. So it looks like this legislation is going to line up with a steadying period in the real estate market. Wouldn't surprise me if people think that it's the cooling off period that is, settling things down in the market, but it's important to note that this is already happening right now. What the government's plan or what they wanted to guard against with this implementation is, again, the buyer's remorse. And also when we talk about home inspections, giving people the opportunity to have their home inspections, they felt concerned that people were buying dud properties without having inspections. So they were purchasing properties that had, riddled with issues that they found out after the fact. In my experience, I don't think that's a very prevalent issue or a prominent issue. I don't believe it is. I think what you guys are concerned about, what we're all concerned about, is real estate pricing, and the implementation of this legislation of the cooling off period is going to have no effect on real estate prices. So that's what we know so far about the cooling off period. Again, they only made changes to the Property Act for now, which allows this to happen, but it does sound like this is going to happen sometime this spring. I hope you learned something from this video. If you did, I'd love it if you could hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. What that does is it sends the video out to more people so they can also learn from it. If you're in the Vancouver area and you need help with your real estate situation, I'd love to help you out. All my contact info is in the description box below. But thanks for taking time to watch this video today, and have a wonderful day.